It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
You know, we're faced with questions every day. What's for dinner? When's our meeting? How was your day? These are questions that are or should be easy to answer, but when you're starting to consider your retirement, the questions get a lot more complicated. To make things easier, we're calling on the wisdom of Barry Watts, the main retirement designer of the Wealthcare Corporation in Springfield. You can have your own chat with Barry by calling 417-200-3500, and this is probably the voice you'll hear. Hello, Barry Watts.
Hey, Ralph.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? That just occurred to me as I heard you say, here's Barry Watts. And I remembered, was it, the TV show when I was a kid was, hey, it's Fat Albert.
Fat Albert. Yeah.
You know, think about that. Can you imagine a TV show today naming a guy Fat Albert? Oh, my goodness. The world would be quite in a fluff about that.
Well, we just talk about what's so politically incorrect these days. So what you can and can't say about people. So, yeah.
And yet Fat Albert was popular. Who would have dreamed 30 seconds ago, Ralph, we were going to be talking about Fat Albert?
We never know what direction. I think we have a direction for our show today. We're going to learn a lot from you this hour, bud. So, good to be back with you on the radio too.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Those questions we asked, how was your day? You know, it was a lot of the time we don't even listen to the answer. What's for dinner? We might listen to that answer. But on questions, Barry, what questions do we want to ask when we're getting so close to retirement?
You know, it's fun, Ralph, when people ask you that, so how are you question and nobody listens to the answer. It's fun to answer a different way. Is, you know, like answer in some glum way, like the world's coming to an end, because sometimes they just blow right past it and don't even pay attention.
And they go, "Oh, that's nice."
But so it's fun. It's fun to kind of bait them that way and just see, you know, well, the world is about to end and I'm not doing very well, and see if they say, "Okay, that's great,
good, glad to hear it." Yes.
But when it comes to retirement questions, the things people are asking really are things like, "Am I ready?" And typically the answer is no, they aren't. You know, we have people come in all the time who, I'm ready to retire. I hate this job. I don't want to work anymore. I'm mad. Really, what they're doing is just letting off steam, because we take them seriously. When they say I'm ready to retire, I say, okay, let's do the math. Let's see if you can do it. And oftentimes we come back and we say, guess what? You can retire. And they say, oh, well, you know, I really didn't want to. I'm really not ready to do that. So the question is, are you really ready to retire? Another question to ask is, you know, when do you want to do this? Are there certain dates that drive you? I had a guy in the office just yesterday. His 65th birthday is the 3rd day of May. And on May the 3rd is the first day of his retirement. He's planning to be done. Maybe where you work, there's a certain workflow and you want to work through the end of a big project or something like that, some big event that you need to address. You want to be there for the 50th year anniversary celebration of the company. I don't know. But not only do you ask, am I ready? You ask, when am I ready? When's the date that I want to pull the trigger on this? And then, of course, there's a couple of other questions related to money. Have I saved enough? And will my money last? And of course, the answer to both of those questions can only be determined if you do a retirement income plan, because the retirement income plan plans out your income every year from the day you retire till the day you turn 100 years old. And we're just guessing on whether you've saved enough, guessing on will your money last, if we don't sit down and do an actual retirement income plan. That's the only way I know to do this. I've been at this for 31 years, and we try to not guess. You know, there's enough that can go wrong in our financial world and our retirement world.
That's true.
That, you know, injecting our guesses in there would just not be a very good idea. Here's something, though, that I bet most people haven't thought about that is a question you want to ask. It's going to be something like this. Will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? You know, so let's say you retire and 6 months later you drop over dead. That could happen. So is your spouse going to be okay? And so we deal with this in our 6 steps to retirement confidence. What is the financial impact of the death of a spouse? What's the financial impact of long-term care? If a spouse had to go into that, you know, the death of a spouse thing, do you realize when your spouse dies, number one thing is going to happen, your taxes will go higher because you start paying taxes as a single person and a married person. And we have a single person penalty in the United States tax code, or a married person benefit. The code is structured to benefit people who are married. And so if you are suddenly single, then your tax rate goes higher. And at the same time, your income falls because you're going to lose the lower Social Security income of the two spouses. That's going to drop off. And so we see situations all the time where people are suddenly set back on their heels because their spouse died early and their tax structure and their income structure changed. So those are the kinds of questions, Ralph, that we want to begin thinking about as we're moving a little closer to retirement.
Right. Plus that double whammy, you just lost your spouse. All the emotional stuff that goes with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, undoubtedly, there are many people listening to us who've walked that path and can tell us about it. And I have to tell you, I'm 60 years old. I hope to be with Kelly another 30 years.
Hope so.
But I think about that once in a while, and we're people of faith. We know where we're going when we leave this place. We're 100% confident that our future is with God in heaven. And that's not because we're good people, by the way. It's because of what Jesus did for us on the cross in paying for our sins. And we're grateful to him for that. And we have received that gift of salvation that he offered that this past Christmas season was so eloquently articulated and is articulated in the Easter season as well. But I don't know how people walk that path. It has got to be one little inch at a time. Just to think about that. So big deal. And we do help a number of clients with that because sometimes even husbands will bring their wives. That seems to be how it works. The husband will bring his wife, and he never really says it in these words, but you can almost tell what's going on. It's almost like a handoff that says, I'm not going to be here forever. And when I'm not here, I want to be sure she's taken care of. And I have selected you as the person I want to take care of her.
And can you help me with that part of it when I'm gone? And
we do that kind of stuff all the time, helping people be sure. And we not only want to take care of the surviving spouse, but we want the spouse who's planning to leave early, as if they could know for sure that they will be that. We want them to have a sense of overwhelming confidence that they've done what they needed to do to take care of their surviving spouse, that they've put things in order. And so that is, that's so profoundly valuable. And we're always talking about investments and taxes and, this investment's better than that investment and that kind of silly stuff. Dude, at the end of the day, knowing that your spouse is going to be cared for, because somebody could do, by the way, the math to tell you that and prove that out to you. But knowing that you have handed that responsibility ultimately to someone who is going to fulfill it and fulfill it well is, oh my, that's just invaluable. And that's a big part of what we do here at the Wealth Care Corporation. And we train our employees, our teammates, to think about that. This isn't just a transaction. These are not, these are not just customers, so to speak. These are people that we care about. They're people that God cares about and that we care about. And our whole passion is just wrapped up in the core value of taking care of the people who are depending on us.
And, that's the way Springfield and the Ozarks is. That's just
it really is.
The culture of it. Yeah.
It really, really is. We live in a beautiful part of the world physically, just the geography, the terrain. It's beautiful. But there is a cultural, by the way, I'll just throw in, we're also backwards in some ways. And sometimes,
I'd say in a good way.
Well,
we're backwards in a good way in Springfield.
We're backwards in good ways too. Don't misunderstand. But the value here in the Ozarks, I think people are friendlier. I think people do care more. I think somebody is much more likely to pick you up off the street when they see you stumble. Yeah. And that's one of the things that makes it wonderful about living here. And I'm conflicted. I almost don't want to say it out loud because we don't want to encourage all those folks who come from the other places to come here. Except if they come here because they want to absorb our values and kind of be who we are. And we have new clients from around the country every month coming in. And it's really interesting. The accents in our conference room are not Southwest Missouri accents at all. Even the names are, it's like, you're not from around here because it's not Smith, Jones, or Cox, Where did you get a name like that? Well, my granddaddy came from Latvia. I don't even know where Latvia is. Is Latvia still a thing? I think it is.
It's by Estonia.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that is true.
Which is next to Latvia.
But they come here because it's better.
Yeah.
And they're coming for the lifestyle, and they're coming to live in a place where people will look them in the eye and speak to them, and where somebody's word has some semblance of meaning to it. And we want to preserve that in the Missouri Ozarks.
Well, if you like what you're hearing from Barry, his phone number in the Ozarks is 417-200-3500. My wife tells me to say the zeros, Barry, not the O's. 200-3500. Another question is, have we saved enough? You know, when they both are across the table from you and they're both together and hopefully living to be 100. Have I saved enough? And I imagine that question is probably one of the first ones people have. How do you help them find the answer to that?
Well, you know, it's you would think that's an easy question. That would be the question. And I think it is the underlying question, but sometimes people can't even articulate that because they don't know what the question is they ought to ask. They just know there's something. I should be doing something to retire, but I don't even know what the something is. And so I'm going to tell you what the something is. Because we talk about it over and over on the show every time we're together, Ralph. You've got to have a retirement income plan. Have I saved enough? What's enough? $1 million, $2 million, $10 million? I don't know. Because unless you can convert what you've saved into income, and you know how to convert it into income in the most efficient way, then it's really irrelevant how much you have saved. And if you don't have a retirement income plan from every year to the time you retire until you're 100 years old, then no, you haven't done what you need to do. You're just guessing. And this is a place where you don't want to guess, because if you're wrong, you might find yourself at age 85 asking that big question.
What question is that, Barry?
Would you like fries with that?
Because that's what's going to happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, I always am saddened when I step up to the counter at McDonald's and the lady waiting on me is well past 80.
Yeah.
It's like, honey, why are you here? Did you want to be here? And I think sometimes maybe the answer is they want to be there and it's vibrant for them. That's great. Knock yourself out. But I don't know anyone who really works their whole life to retire and then go back to work standing behind the counter at McDonald's or as a greeter at Walmart. Walmart doesn't have greeters anymore, I don't think.
Not as many.
Whole point is you just don't want to be, put in a position where you have to go back to work and where you're asking that, would you like fries with that question?
Yeah.
Because that's not going to work out really well for you.
If you'd like a better plan than that, and give Barry a call, it's 417-200-3500. Barry, it's already time for our sponsors to step in and get a little commercial break here, and we'll continue our discussion right after this. How about that?
That's great.
We will do it.
What does your dream retirement look like? While you're busy thinking about that, why not let Barry and his team help you come up with a plan to help you achieve those dreams? Call 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth after this.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of Missouri and California. Investing involves risk.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of WealthCare. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
Welcome back into the Watts on Wealth radio show. WattsWealth.com is Barry's website, and this is Ralph Hipp, Barry Watts, the main retirement designer for the WealthCare Corporation. And Barry, back to our conversation on income. How many sources of income do people usually have in retirement? They've got to have maybe 3 or 4 at least. What would you say?
I would say most people have 2 sources.
2? All right.
Well, if we were looking at society at large, probably most people have 1 source of income, and that's Social Security. Now, the people that we see in our practice usually have at least 2 sources of income. That is Social Security, and then whatever they have saved for retirement that can be converted into a source of income for them. Some people also have a pension, so that's 3 sources. And of course, the Bible speaks to that. It talks about how a 3-strand cord is not quickly broken, I believe is what it says.
Interesting.
I think that's in Proverbs. I'd have to look that up to be sure. But, a 3-legged stool is better than a 2-legged stool. A 2-legged stool will tip you over. So it's good to have 3 sources. 4 sources is even better. In fact, when I retire, which is about 10 years away, I will have 4 sources of income. I'll have Social Security. And then I'll have what I have saved for retirement. And then I have a life insurance retirement plan that is actually going to pay me tax-free income from my life insurance policy when I retire. And I'm really looking forward to that tax-free income, darn near close to 6 figures a year, every year from the time I'm 70 to the time I'm 100, all coming tax-free from life insurance. And then I also own some real estate, so I will have a source of income from real estate. So I'll have 4. Some people have 4 or 5 even. Occasionally we'll see, but more is better. And sometimes there are things you can do if you've got 2 to convert it to 3. We can show you how to make that happen.
Oh, good.
Now,
okay.
There's something else to keep in mind, though, Ralph. One of the things that you do need to think about, most people don't think about, but I always ask about it, is inheritances. Will you be receiving an inheritance? Because ultimately that will add to what you have saved. And I'm fortunate enough that, Lord willing, I'll receive an inheritance. That's the plan, at least, that mom and dad have laid, assuming they don't have to use that money for long-term care. And I doubt that would occur because we have got long-term care protections in place for them. And so these are the different places that you go to get income. And we try to figure out how much income that's going to be, where that income is coming from, and then put that into your retirement income plan so we know what we can count on for you.
All right. Hey, that number to call is 417-200-3500 to get in touch with Barry at the WealthCare Corporation. So, Barry, what are some of the ways to help all of us figure out the retirement date? Like for me, I was a news TV anchorman, and when my contract was up, it was Labor Day. So, okay, Labor Day, I'm done. My contract is over, and then I'm no longer contractually obligated to the TV station. That was my retirement date. What are some of the best ways we can figure out our retirement date?
Well, Ralph, I have a top secret special way of helping people figure out what their retirement date is. It's very unique, proprietary to us. I should copyright this. The way I help people figure out their retirement date is I ask them, when do you want to retire? Because what should drive you is when you want to retire. What's the date that you want to retire? And if you'll tell me what date you want to retire, and a few other things like how much you need in sitting on the porch money, well, then we figure out if that date works. Will you have enough income to last till age 100? And if it does, great, pull the trigger, retire. And if it doesn't, then we start moving retirement out. And then what we're looking for is when is the earliest date that you can retire? But it always starts by asking the question, when do you want to retire? Now, Ralph, sometimes people come sit down with me and it's kind of awkward because one of the things that they may stumble out and say quickly is, okay, Barry, here I am. I heard you on the radio, so I've come in to see you. So show me what you got. Show me your retirement plan. Dude, don't do that. That's kind of dumb. Because it's not how we do it.
It's not the way it works.
I don't have a plan for you. There's no such thing as the Barry plan for your retirement because Barry doesn't know you. Barry doesn't know what your retirement needs to be. That's why we visit a lot with people before they become our clients, because we need to know what they want to accomplish. And if I know where you want to go, what you want to accomplish, then I can build an effective plan to get you there. But it never starts with what I want or what I have. It always starts with what you want and whether you'll ultimately have enough income to get you where you want to go. And typically that's going to be income to age 100.
Okay. Also, Barry, what are some of the ways you help your clients around the Ozarks develop a budget for retirement? And does that necessarily have to be written down, or can they just make some notes and kind of wing it?
Well, I think a budget has to be written down, but how do I help people develop them? I don't. And
Okay.
here's why. People don't want budgets. People hate budgets by and large. I bet if we could hear the applause from our listening radio audience today, people are pulling off the side of the road so they can applaud and stand up and shout, "Yay, Barry, you're right. I hate budgets."
We're hearing it now.
Oh, wait. There's one guy still driving down the road. He's an accountant and he's loving it. But everybody else is pulled off and their eyes are glazed over because people don't budget. Now, my wife is an exception to this. She has a spreadsheet and she can tell you exactly what we've spent on clothing this month and exactly what we've spent on groceries and exactly what she spent on house maintenance and all these kinds of things. She's a wonderful exception. She taught it to our daughters and they're doing a great job with it. So more power to them. But most people just say, yeah, I don't want to do the budget thing. So I asked the question, how much sitting on the porch money do you need? And that's the amount that's deposited into your bank account every month in retirement to allow you to do whatever it is that you want to do, sit on the porch or go and live a vastly different life than that, whatever you want to do in retirement. And some people can't even answer that question. So here's a little tip for you. I would suggest as you're anticipating retirement that you track your spending. And I think you should track your spending for a full year. A full year, you should write down everything you spend on a daily basis. Every trip to the grocery store, every stop at the convenience store, every gassing up my car experience, every $20 to the grandkid for their birthday, whatever it happens to be, so that you really know what you're spending. If you could write that down, that would be helpful. If you can't write it down, you're not just going to do that. Well, then here's how we start. We say, okay, let's see how much money is hitting your bank account right now. How much check do you get? Well, I get $3,700. All right. How often do you get that? Well, I get it twice a month. Okay. So now we know how much money you have coming in on a monthly basis. On a monthly basis, how much of that money is going to savings or how much are you spending? Oh, well, I'm not saving anything. All right. Well, we know then that 3,700 times 2 is 7,400 is the amount that you're spending every month if you're not saving anything. And so that's a good place for us to start with your retirement income number, your sitting on the porch number. So, we got ways we back into this and cheat our way into figuring out how much it is because most people are not going to budget, Ralph.
Yeah. Maybe Kelly aside, do people underestimate or they overestimate what they'll spend in retirement?
That's kind of a fun, crazy thing. And you almost know how serious they are. Or maybe I should just say how good they are with money by how they answer that question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people haven't thought about it. And if they haven't thought about it, they usually will underestimate, we don't spend very much money at all. The lady who was in just a month or so ago, she said $2,200 a month, all in. That's everything. Now, she's currently, in her case, making $7,200 a month, and she's not saving anything. So if she tells me she's going to retire on $2,200 a month, that's a $5,000 a month cut in her expenses. I don't believe her.
Do you say good luck with that?
I don't think she understands math is what I don't think.
Yeah.
And so, people don't know how to think about this stuff. And then there are some people who are on the opposite side of it. They have overwant is what I'll call it. They want more than they should need probably in retirement, but that's not for me to choose. If somebody walks in and says, I need $30,000 a month. Okay. That's what the number is. I had a client in last week who their number was $12,000 a month, which is pretty decent living. It's $144,000 a year.
Sure.
$12,000 a month at age 62. Guess what? They're going to be broke before they're 70 years old. But now here's how this process works. We had to first say to them, you can do what you say you want to do, but you're going to be broke before you're 70 years old. But if instead of retiring at 62, if you could find a way to work until 65, and if you could modify your spending from $12,000 a month to $11,000 a month, you have money to last you all the way to age 100. So that's the importance of a retirement income spending plan for every year, because it allows you to make smaller adjustments now. Can you, these people were in their early 50s, by the way, can instead of working 10 more years, you think you could work 13? Maybe, yeah. And instead of living on $12,000 a month, do you think you could live on $11,000 a month? Well, yeah, probably I could do that because their house payment, by the way, was $1,700 a month. So the house payment's going to go away. So we know that they can ultimately do that.
That sounds good. All right.
So this is how we help people think through that process and come to some real numbers about what it takes for them to live.
Right. Okay, and once again, Barry's phone number to get a conversation of your own started with him. It's 417-200-3500 for the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, you're right there at Highway 65 and Battlefield Road. Are your main offices there?
That's correct. We're about halfway between Second Baptist Church, that's down on Battlefield Road, the big white church, and Glendale High School. Oh. Ingram Mill makes a curve right there between Battlefield and Glendale High School, and we're right on that curve.
People are going, I know right where that is. So that's right where they are. Well, saving money for your retirement, that is one thing. It's a whole different kind of a ballgame, making sure your money lasts as long as you do, because the problem is you don't know how long you're going to live. And once we're confident we've saved enough money to retire, Barry, how can we help make sure we don't outlive our savings? What are your thoughts on that to the people that come and see you over there?
Addressing that issue is built into the core of our 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence process. What causes you to outlive your savings is simply overspending. So once you develop a plan that you like and that works, translation, a plan for income to age 100, then we just ask the question, what can thwart that plan? Well, overspending. So let's imagine that. And let's build some overspending into the original plan. What is overspending? Well, I'm going to want to spend $12,000 a year on travel. Let's put it in the plan. So now we need sitting on the porch money plus $12,000 a year on travel. And every 5 years, I'm going to buy a new vehicle. And it's going to cost at least $50,000. Let's put that into the spending plan. And I like to give my kids $1,000 each at Christmas time. Let's put that in the spending plan. So let's come up with all the overspends that we will do, and let's put them into our plan and expect them. And then, Ralph, let's do a stress test. Now, the stress test on your plan would be, let's make things go wrong and see, does your plan still work? For example, let's have one of the spouses die early. Will the plan still work for the other spouse? Let's have one of the spouses go into long-term care. Will the plan still work for the other spouse? Let's allow the IRS and the Congress to increase tax rates. If tax rates really increase like they say they're going to, will the plan still work? Let's have the stock market go south for 3 years in a row like it did 2000, 2001, 2002. Or let's have it go down by 37% like it did in 2008. Will the income plan still work if those things happen? If you have a plan that can be stress tested by all those things, and we have a way of stress testing the math to make it work, and your plan still works, then hallelujah, that's exactly what you needed. But if we stress test it and it begins to fail in those situations, then that's an indication to us that we need to fix some things.
All right. Oh boy, if this sounds great to you, this is Barry Watts. You're listening to Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation, and you can reach them and have your own conversation with Barry, 417-200-3500. We're going to take a little halftime break here, Barry. Be back with more in a moment. This is Ralph Hipp, your host for the Watts on Wealth radio show. We'll return in just a few minutes here. Don't go away.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
Welcome back in, and along with J. Barry Watts, the main retirement creator for the Wealth Care Corporation, I'm your radio host, Ralph Hipp. And when we come back for the second half of our program, I want you to get in the habit of listening for this. We have our Social Security question of the day. So, Barry, here's something that I've wondered. A lot of people have wondered about Social Security. Let's say you take it, and then you learn more about its impact on your taxes and things like that. You decide, I made a mistake. I wish I hadn't pulled the trigger on my Social Security just yet. Can you back up and undo your filing?
Well, Ralph, the good news is you absolutely can do that.
You can have like clients, a redo.
Yeah, you do get a do-over with Social Security. And there are some rules you have to follow. I've had clients who've actually gone to the Social Security office and asked the question you just asked and been told, nope, you can't redo it. Or in one case, the Social Security rep said they didn't even understand the question. But the answer is yes, you can redo and undo your filing, unfile for Social Security, if it's been less than 12 months since you filed. Now, if it's been more than 12 months, nope, you've glued it down and there it is. But if it's been less than 12 months, you can say, stop, I didn't mean to file. I wish I hadn't done that. And Social Security will allow you to repay what you have received from Social Security. So you hand the money back to them. And then that cleans your situation up so you can refile again at a later date and receive a higher payout. Now, you only get to do this once, so we don't want to do this multiple times because that's not possible. But you do get a do-over, one mulligan, a Social Security mulligan. That's what we should call it.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
What I would say is don't go ask Social Security about this. Simply go online, go to ssa.gov. That's the Social Security Administration, ssa.gov. And then they've got a little search box up there. Just put up in the search box, cancel your benefits application. Cancel your benefits application. It'll show you the paperwork. It shows you everything to send in, tells you exactly what to do. And you can do a do-over and get a Social Security mulligan.
Boy, that is really good to know and could be very valuable later on. Okay, back to our conversation, Mr. Watts. We brought out some of the stats on this before, but the average person who was 65 would need a little less than $160,000 saved after taxes for health care costs in retirement, upwards of $300,000 for the average couple. And that's based on the research and stats from Fidelity. Now, keep in mind that excludes any long-term care. We're just talking about immediate health care costs. So, Barry, what are some of the ways you can help your clients plan for that on health care costs?
Well, I think the big healthcare cost that's going to get you is going to be long-term care because most people are covered by Medicare. And if you've got Medicare plus a Medicare supplement plan, and those Medicare supplement plans are priced all over the place, but for purposes of our conversation today, let's say $300 a month.
All right.
If you have the right Medicare supplement plan, it will cover practically everything that you need in terms of healthcare costs. And so you probably don't have to worry about that until it comes to long-term care. And then Medicare is not stepping in to take care of that. So there are 5 ways that you can pay for Medicare. 5 ways you can pay for long-term care.
Long-term care.
Yeah, 5 ways to pay for long-term care. You can self-fund it, meaning you just write a check. You can depend on your kids, make them pay for it essentially or provide it to you. And that's okay for a while, but maybe not. I did have a client tell me one time that his daughter had agreed to take care of him until the point of diapers. And when the time came that he was no longer continent, she said, Dad, I will have to have somebody else take care of that. That's legitimate. That was a good way to do it.
Sure.
So 5 ways you can self-fund. You can depend on your kids. You can throw yourself on the government. That's called Medicaid. It's where you give any assets you've got to the government, and then the government's welfare program will pay for you. And I think that's the worst plan of all. You can buy long-term care insurance. The problem is it's hard to buy these days. And if you do buy it, the price just goes up and up and up and up and up for most people. I had a guy in yesterday, I think it was, who was telling me that he had long-term care insurance through his employer and he loved it. And he had the chance to get some long-term care insurance outside attached to his life insurance. And he chose not to attach it to his life insurance because he had it with his employer. Well, guess what? The employer dropped the long-term care insurance. And so now this guy doesn't have long-term care insurance.
Okay.
So he's kind of in trouble. Another problem with long-term care insurance, by the way, is if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're fortunate enough to die in your sleep and never use your long-term care insurance, then that money's just gone from your family. And it's why I use the 5th option personally, Ralph. My option that I prefer is life insurance with an accelerated death benefit. So if I lived a long life and just die, death benefit goes to my family. But if I get sick and need care, they'll turn the death benefit into a living benefit. Now it's life insurance instead of death insurance. They'll turn it into a living benefit and they'll pay me the death benefits while I'm still alive to cover my long-term care costs. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful plan. It's one that we like and recommend a lot. And about 80% of our clients have those particular plans. And just a little whisper piece of information about that, Ralph. If you don't use it for long-term care and you don't want to leave it in there and die with the money in the plan, you can actually take income out of this plan on a tax-free basis anytime you want. And so that's a part of my retirement plan as well, is to use that for tax-free retirement income. It's a fabulous approach.
How many of you knew that? Or especially, how many of you didn't know that? Well, Barry can guide you through all that with your family. So 4 out of 5 of his clients, they have that. And Barry's number is 417-200-3500 to get things going with the Wealth Care Corporation. Well, another big question that folks have, Barry, is, will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? You've brought this up in our conversation today. And what are some of the ways that you can help clients get ready for that kind of a scenario?
Well, it's all a part of that income planning to age 100 that's built into our process, which is called the 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence.
Yes.
Because we want you to be able to retire confident that you're going to have money to 100. And if you're not, we want you to know when you're going to run out and what steps you need to take to fix it. We want you to be able to retire confident that if one spouse dies and the other spouse lives long, that the surviving spouse is going to be taken care of. And so when we're building these plans, I mentioned earlier, we stress test them. And one of the stressors we put in is we just key in and say, well, what happens if Ralph dies in 2034? What happens to Sheila? That's the step we take. And we look at the math, and the math either says Sheila's fine or it says, oh no, Sheila's in deep trouble. Well, so now we have to begin modifying our plan to cure that problem. Or what happens if Sheila goes into long-term care? How does that impact Ralph's income in retirement? Is it going to take so much away from him that there's not going to be enough for him to live to be 100? So we build this into the process. Those are 2 stressors that we place against your retirement plan to see whether or not the spouses are going to be okay. And I mean, you can only prepare if you know what it is you're preparing for. So we try to create these false but serious problems to force them into your plan, and then see if they wreck things or if they don't. And if they do wreck things, all right, how do we protect against that catastrophe?
Well,
and there's steps we can take.
Yeah, you have a lot more control, friends, when you go, okay, Barry, that scenario that we talked about, okay, it just happened, so let's put that plan into place instead of, wringing your hands, what do I do now? So that's what Barry can do for you. The possible need for long-term care can be a very tough topic for a couple or family to talk about. And Barry, should they have that discussion regardless of who might want to be involved in it? Who do we get into that conversation?
I chuckle when people tell me, Dad's 90 and I have no idea whether he's got any money or whether there'll be any inheritance or anything.
Wow. Yeah.
Because he never talks about those things. Well, do you really think you're going to live forever? Now, I am, but not here. We just transitioned to a spiritual topic there.
You discussed that earlier as well?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But the fact is we're all going to die at some point, and we just need to acknowledge that. And we're all going to get sick at some point, perhaps, hopefully not. But, we're going to have issues. So we need to talk about it. My father-in-law was one of the worst about these. I think he played that card wrong because he was a Dayco guy. He worked at Dayco forever. And then those of us who grew up in the Ozarks, we remember when Dayco was good jobs. And then those jobs kind of went away and there were union problems and so forth. Anyway, he got locked out in the strikes and he wound up finishing up his working years working in a nursing home. He was the maintenance man at the nursing home. And he made my mother-in-law promise that no matter what happened, she would never send them to a nursing home. He made her promise that. Well, now, guess what? He got Alzheimer's. And that's a bad story, how it all flows together. And as my wife tells it, the fortunate part of it was when he was finally released from the hospital the last time, they sent him to, quote, rehab. Mm-hmm. And it happened to be a nursing home that had a rehab unit. So Kelly was able to sell it to her mother on the fact that it was a rehab experience, not a nursing home issue. And he actually died in rehab. So fortunately, she was able to take care of it. But my big point is, don't make them promise what they won't do. I won't make Kelly promise that. As much as I want to ask that, I won't make her promise that because she's just a human being. She can only do what she can do. Now, my responsibility for me, and I think your responsibility for you, is to build a financial plan to deal with that particular problem and then show it to your kids. Tell your kids about it. Tell them where the paperwork is on it. Take a piece of paper out, draw pictures, and show them how it's supposed to work. My kids are in their 20s. I'm only 60. Hopefully I'll be here another 30 years or so. But my kids already know where the drawer is in my credenza with all of this stuff in it. And my new son-in-law knows where that drawer is as well. So I show it to them. I talk about it regularly. I pull the files out and I go through them and say, here's the money and here's what the money looks like and so forth. Because the last thing I want is them to have this panic-stricken moment. Mm-hmm. For Kelly to have a panic-stricken moment, I want the kids to be able to sit down and say, Mom, here's what the money looks like. It's all okay. So I just think this is part of being a mature, good human being, taking care of the person that you promised to love. And I think you need a plan to do that. And by the way, if this is hard for you, I understand. Not everybody's loquacious. Ooh, there's a big word. I hope
I'll have to look that up, Barry.
I think I use it. I think that means you use big words.
Yeah.
Not everybody's able to talk about this as easily. If you can't talk about it, that's okay. We will help you find language to talk about it with your kids. And we'll even show you a way to bring your kids in and allow us to explain on your behalf what we have done so that your kids know what to expect. And I think that's a great value.
Yep. There's a made up word, none ya, where it's none your business. And some parents may go, our money is none of your business, but, you should make it their business and have them know exactly where those documents and papers are. It's good advice, Barry. Time for another break, and we're going to chat a little bit more, right, Barry?
Absolutely.
We've got more to talk about here and more for you to listen to, folks. Great information from J. Barry Watts, the main retirement designer for the Wealth Care Corporation at Highway 65 and Battlefield Road. I'm your host, Ralph Hipp, and we'll continue the conversation with Barry in just a moment here. Don't go away.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the WealthCare team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services offered through duly registered individuals through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of Missouri and California.
Well, we're proud that you did what you said you were going to do. You stuck with us here. We've got more of the Barry Watts Show, Watts on Wealth, and Ralph Hipp here with you. Barry, we have a common misconception that estate and legacy planning and all those wills are only for the rich and the wealthy. But no, sir. What would you say about that?
Well, I think that's silly.
It's for all of us.
And, people just don't know what they don't know. Back before Christmas of last year, my 25-year-old daughter was talking about estate and legacy planning while we're waiting in line at the Fire in the Hole in Silver Dollar City.
Oh, great place.
And the Fire in the Hole, they changed the line because, they shut down the ride. And so everybody wants to ride it for the last time. So we had to go down there and ride it for the last time.
Yeah.
And we're winding our way through the cemetery there at the front of Fire in the Hole. And I've always gotten kind of a chuckle about that little cemetery because they've got fake tombstones set up in there.
Yes.
And many of the people's names on the fake tombstones are people that I grew up with and that I knew. Because they were employees at Fire in the Hole. So somehow when they were building them, they thought it would be funny to put these employees' names on the fake tombstone. For example, one name that was on there I always remember is Radine Uchler was there. Now, I grew up with Radine. There's a debate about whether it's Uchler or Utzler. Mm-hmm. But I grew up with Radine. His son, Rob, was my age. Radine died a couple of years ago down around the lake. But he worked at Silver Dollar City, and I knew who he was. And 30 years ago, you could walk past his tombstone there in the cemetery at Fire in the Hole. So that got us to talking about dying and so forth. And my 25-year-old daughter wanted to know, so how's the estate set up? How does this work? How do you even do that? Do you have a will? Well, baby, we use trusts. Oh, I don't know what that is. Well, so I'm standing in line explaining to my daughter and anybody else who happens to listen what a trust is and how a trust works. So here's the big deal. If you've got assets you want to pass to someone else, you must have a formalized estate plan to accomplish that. Otherwise, it might not happen. You can't just assume, well, it'll go to my kids, because it might not. And then, Ralph, beyond the formalized estate plan to pass the assets on, there's another question, and it's this. What do you think your greatest asset is, Ralph?
Mine is my life and my wife. I've got two of them.
Well, I would submit that there might be a different way to phrase it. I'm going to tell you that more important than your money. Think about this. If if you had the choice between losing all of your experiences and all the wisdom you've developed from your experiences or losing all of your money, which would you choose to lose?
Tough question.
I would choose to lose all my money. Here's why. I can earn the money back. I have the wisdom to earn the money back. I have the experiences and the know-hows and so forth to earn the money back. And so what I want to pass on to my kids and my grandkids is not just the money, the asset. I want to pass on the greater asset, which is the experience, the values, the convictions that I have that I want to be sure are played out in the lives of my children and my grandchildren. You know, I've talked here in this particular podcast or broadcast, I should say, about knowing where I'm going when I die. Well, now how can you say that? Well, I'd be glad to tell you exactly how I can say that and exactly why I can say that based on what's contained in the Word of God and the promises that God has made to me in the person of His Son, Jesus. I'd be happy to explain that to you. And I want more than anything for my kids to have that. Now, I've been through some hard times. The roughest thing ever happened to me in my life, Ralph, is when I was a young man, I was divorced. It gutted me. It gutted me. And it was hard to get over. And then in the middle of my business career, I had a reversal. As a part of the Great Recession, I had a great multi-million-dollar reversal. Oh my. It was hard, maybe even harder than the divorce. And so the point is, well, Barry, you're standing upright today. How do you survive those things? I don't want to die with those secrets. I want my kids to know the values and the convictions and the things that are so important that helped me and Kelly to navigate through that, helped me to navigate through the difficulty. And maybe you've got all kinds of other different stories, but the point is all of us have got some stuff that you want to be sure this message gets to the grandkids. We need a method of transferring that, and I call that the greatest asset.
Oh, absolutely. And to talk to Barry, hey, if you're just joining us for a minute or two, hope you're here for the whole hour. Barry's phone number is 417-200-3500 to reach out to Barry Watts and the team at the Wealth Care Corporation. When we plan to retire, and if 2024 is your year to do that, listen closely. You might want to consider all the risks that your money would face, because if you don't take steps in preserving your money from risk, your retirement could be at risk. So, Barry, what are the risks to retirement income that really sneak up on us that we don't see it coming? We tend to overlook it.
Well, we talk often in the broadcast about risks and about how to avoid those risks. But I'll tell you one that people don't pay attention to is longevity. You really need to think about living to 100. Everybody says, I won't live that long. Well, maybe not, but
maybe so.
More and more people are.
Maybe so.
And I'm guessing, so you need to think about the fact that you could well live to be 100 years old, and you need an income plan that'll get you to there. And some of you need to plan to be 110. That's what I'm doing for Kelly. Now, the second thing you need to be aware of is having all your eggs in one basket. People often bring that up and say, well, Barry, I wouldn't want to bring my investments to you because I wouldn't want to have all my eggs in one basket. Dude, do you think we have all your eggs in one basket? Oh, they're in one account, maybe, or 2 or 3 or 5 accounts that have your names on them, IRAs and Roth IRAs and so forth. But they're invested in a plethora of many different things because we don't want an Enron to happen. Enron was the big utility company, the big oil and gas company out of Houston, Texas, that blew up because the accounting was all shady. And people who had jobs at Enron lost their jobs, lost their 401ks, and lost all of their stock holdings, all in one fell swoop. So it's critical that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, that you don't own in your IRA the stock of the company you work for. And, oh, by the way, you also have a stock option program that you're contributing into. You need to be better diversified for that.
Yeah.
So, Ralph, those are some of the things that we see people fail to pay enough attention to as they're planning their retirement.
Yeah. And I know, friends, Barry will talk with you about the risks and how many risks are you willing to take? What is your risk tolerance? So you'll definitely discuss that with him too. You mentioned having your money, if you race your car down Glenstone Avenue, how much money would you be willing to have fly out of that box and still be able to live on it? So
that's right. Talking about the speed of your investments.
Yeah. One of our biggest worries, Barry, that a lot of us have in the Ozarks and around the country is running out of money while we're retired. Can you talk about why so many people are worried about outliving what they've saved?
Oh, absolutely, Ralph. And the reason they're so concerned about it is because if they do outlive their money, it really sucks.
It's terrifying.
It's bad to not have any money left. And one of the things that can erode our savings is the impact of inflation. Here's just something to think about. How long will you be retired? Well, hopefully 25 or 30 years probably. And over the past 25 years, the cost of food has increased by 55%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The cost of food has increased 55%. The cost of medical care has increased 115%, paying over twice as much for medical care. The cost of housing has increased 57%. So that's not going to stop when the day you retire. You don't get a card that says, oh, no inflation for you. No, inflation's going to continue to happen. And so the cost of running out of money is expensive. You wind up working or begging during your final years of retirement when you're least able to do so in terms of health and energy. So this is a very serious concern, and it's why you should have a retirement income plan all the way to age 100 so you can have a sense of confidence that running out is not likely to be one of the things that impacts you.
Yeah. Barry, I can't believe it. We're getting down to the end of our hour here on our new radio home. And how important is tax planning for retirees? Let's close on that note. Can a lack of good tax planning impact our retirement, and in what ways can it do that?
Well, the big picture, Ralph, is if you don't get the taxes right, nothing else is going to matter. You know, taxes are viewed as, most people treat them as something out there that just affects me once a year and I deal with it on April 15th and then I forget about it for the year. You can't do that as you go into retirement or it's going to bite you in the hind quarters. The head of the government accounting office, government accountability office, he is call him the government CPA because he is a CPA. He has said taxes are going to double over time. There's no other solution, he says. The Congressional Budget Office says that in the future, there will be 3 tax brackets, 25%, 63%, and 88%. And if you think, by the way, you're going to be in the 25% bracket, just consider this. The 10% bracket, the 12% bracket that we have right now, those have disappeared. So those are the people who are going to be in the 25% bracket. If you're right now in the 24, 22% bracket, something like that, you're going to be in the 63% bracket. And some of our listeners are going to be in the 88% bracket.
88.
So the whole, by the way, it's been there before. That's nothing new.
I can't believe that.
If you'll go back to the 1940s, the top tax bracket was higher than that.
Wow.
And so there will be a day of reckoning, Ralph, when the options for the United States government are going to be bankruptcy or raising taxes. And those will be the only choices. Now, it's popular on a station like this one to talk about how, we're going to always have lower taxes. And I think we should have more tax breaks and so forth. I get it. I'm in favor of that too, but the simple math doesn't allow for it. And unfortunately, our Republican colleagues who are in leadership sometimes can't just be blunt and tell us the full, whole, total truth. They like to say, well, we're going to grow the economy and we'll tax the growth in the economy. You can't grow the economy fast enough to take care of this particular problem. And so I'm just telling you, you write it down on this date, at this time, at this hour, look and see what the clock says for the time. You say, Barry Watts said taxes are going to go higher. You write that down, bring it to me and I'll sign it because it's going to happen. And that's what we have to help people protect themselves from is those coming tax increases by having more and more of their money in buckets that will never, ever be taxed again. That's really what we help people do at the Wealth Care Corporation.
All right. Hey, Barry, I'm looking at the old clock on the wall and our hour is complete. Our hour is done here. Give us your phone number one more time if they want to call just one-on-one or two-on-one and talk with you some more.
Ralph, I'd love for them to call, and the way they can reach us is by dialing 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And when you call, tell them, hey, I've been listening to Barry on the radio and I'd like to talk to him. And whoever answers the phone will create an opportunity for you and me to visit. If it happens to be a month that you call where I'm going to be traveling and not available and got lots of client appointments already, they might set you up with one of my associates.
Right. Okay.
But they're well equipped to have these conversations too. We would love to take care of you if you'll just call us at 417-200-3500.
All right. Barry, it's always a real pleasure to talk with you for the hour. And friends, hope you'll join us again here on our new radio home for the Watts on Wealth radio show. This is Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts, and make a note to join us again next time. Have a good one.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today. at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.